Welcome to the Women in Engineering podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nikki Borstead from Fast Enterprises, which is a software and IT consulting company with operations based in the US and projects all across Canada. Nikki, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you today. I'm just going to jump right into the questions. So tell me a little bit about what Fast Enterprises does.
Sure. So like you said, Fast is a software and IT consulting company. Essentially, what we're doing is modernizing government technology and replacing systems that are quite literally decades old. In Canada, we implement our tax processing software in three provinces. We're in British Columbia, Manitoba, and Ontario. A fun fact is that British Columbia was actually our first project ever. When the partners of Fast started the company, British Columbia was looking for anybody to give them a tax processing software that worked, and they were willing to take a chance on a group of people that have never implemented their software anywhere else, and we're still active in British Columbia today. So really just trying to make the government more efficient and provide them with a better software solution.
Wow, that's really interesting. And what's your favorite part about working at Fast?
I would say the easiest answer for me to give is the people. The company culture is something that makes it really easy. We do relocate our employees. So our employees are moving all over the country in the United States and sometimes abroad, like to Canada or maybe even just within Canada. And also we have some other international locations as well. So moving and relocation is a huge part of our culture. And with that, because everyone's moving, everyone is understanding of what the other people are going through. So it makes it a lot easier to move to these new locations because you're going to a group of people that are really welcoming. They're excited to go out and do things together. I've gotten to do some really fun things that I maybe would have never tried before. Like I recruited with a developer that loved Korean barbecue, and I never had tried it before. And I probably never would because you have to cook for yourself. And that's just, why would you want to do that? And so luckily he cooked for me and I didn't have to do any of the work. I just got to enjoy the meal. So there's always fun things to do. There's always people that are wanting to go out and explore that new area together. And then I'd also say that I love the impact that Fast makes. So because we are working with government agencies, our work is affecting millions of people every single day. And since I am part of the recruiting team at Fast, I'm not directly impacting or helping make governments more efficient, but I like to say I'm hiring all the people that get to do that. And I still feel like I'm part of that impact that Fast makes.
Yeah, and I feel like culture is such a big thing, especially in a new job. So definitely really nice that Fast has an emphasis on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to students starting out in their first job in the industry?
Definitely. Yeah, I would say really being eager to learn. I think that is something that anyone that has trained somebody in on a new position, whether that's maybe even in your college job, the people that want to be there, that want to learn, that want to pick up that new information. I think starting a new job, you're always going to have a learning curve. That's just natural. And so being able and willing to just jump in, learn, ask questions, that's just really important and a skill or attribute that really anybody would be looking for. The other thing I'd like to note is to also just take initiative. Trust that you have a skill set and that you have knowledge to bring to the table. So utilize that, be confident in yourself and be confident in your skill set. It's still important to ask questions and not get too far ahead of yourself, but as you're starting that job and as you're feeling more comfortable, definitely feel confident in yourself to take initiative and try to just figure things out on your own. And when you can't figure it out, then go and ask for help.
No, that's some really good advice. I feel like, especially starting out your first job, it's always really easy to get caught up in the worry and the fear. So definitely confidence is key.
Mm-hmm.
And what would be some general advice then that you would give to a student creating their resume or LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, I would say making it easy to read is something that, as I was thinking about my top tips to give everyone today, that was something that kept coming to my mind, is make it as easy to read as possible. I think that there's a stat out there that recruiters spend about 6.5 seconds on a resume, and I've timed myself. I am probably around 30 seconds. So definitely a little bit longer, but still, compared to how much effort and work you're putting into your resume or your LinkedIn profile, it's still pretty sad that that's all the time that we spend on it. But that's why it's so important to make it easy to read, make the formatting consistent throughout. And then also, first impressions are everything. And so if an employer or recruiter is looking at your resume or even your LinkedIn profile, it is really important to make a strong first impression, because ultimately that's how you're presenting yourself to them. You're not getting that opportunity to interview yet, or talk to them and show your personality. This is really your only way that you're showing who you are.
And so you mentioned easy to read. What are a couple tips that you would have to make your resume easy to read?
I think a lot of it comes down to the formatting of it. So I like to encourage people to have different sections, like your education section, experience, skills. Definitely, if you have those technical hard skills, making sure you're listing those. You don't want an employer to assume you have a skill. You want to make sure that you're laying it all out there and telling them everything. I also think it comes down to the words on the page, your bullet points, and keeping them concise. I encourage, and when I do resume reviews with students, I encourage them not to talk just about the tasks that they did, but also the skills that they learned. So thinking about those key words, it's easy to think about the tasks that you did in a job. So I always recommend writing those out, making a list of the tasks, and then associate a skill with that task. I think that's the easiest way to think about it. And then you can start crafting those bullet points to focus more so on those transferable skills that you gained within that role. Making sure your name's at the top of your resume, your contact information, and then kind of going over to LinkedIn a little bit, making sure that that's an extension of your resume. Your resume can only be one page. You're limited to that. But your LinkedIn, you're not limited at all. You can use your LinkedIn as a way to highlight all of your experiences and all of your different skills, education. You don't have to feel limited to just that one page. So you can expand a little bit more on what skills you learned and what tasks you did within different positions and experiences that you've had.
That makes a lot of sense. And what stands out to employers on a resume?
I think right now, because most people listening to this are still in school, that's your full-time job. That's the most important thing that you're doing. Your education, that's the most important thing. That's what's going to stand out to me. What skills are you gaining in college right now that you are wanting to transfer into a career? Making sure that's at the top. That's the most important thing. That's the first thing. I think you can stand out in a bad way on a resume. I think that comes maybe to mind a little bit easier, is standing out in a negative way, not putting in that time to format your resume the way that you should, or it is very obvious when people don't put in the work or the effort into their resume. But I think really there isn't a wrong way to do a resume. A resume isn't like a legal document. There's not like a only this is the only way you can do your resume, but if you're not putting in that effort, I think that's the biggest way to stand out, but in a bad way.
And would that be, say, maybe the biggest mistake a student can make then, or are there other big mistakes that students should avoid on their resume or LinkedIn?
I would say that's probably the biggest mistake, is just not putting in that effort. I think if you're listening to this podcast, then you're probably already ahead of the game. You're caring about your career. You're caring about how you're presenting yourself to employers. So maybe we're preaching a little bit to the choir here, but if you have a blank LinkedIn or a poorly formatted resume, it really shows and it is really obvious. I can also, like I said too before, not putting the skills that you have on your resume. I speak with people that are software engineering majors and they don't put that they have, like C++ or Java or C#, those core languages that I know as a computer science major or a software engineering major, you're learning these skills, but you don't want me to assume that. Same with the skills that you're learning, those soft skills. I always give the example of, even if you don't have an internship or related experience, to still put those experiences on your resume. So like, for example, if you're a pizza delivery driver, you're still learning a lot of transferable skills that are going to be relevant for your jobs to come. For example, you have attention to detail. Maybe it's communication skills, de-escalating angry customers that they're not happy with what pizza they got. Making sure, like, that attention to detail, making sure you're actually delivering the pizza to the right home or the right place, the correct pizza. So you are still learning really valuable skills in those positions that, even if you feel like it's not relevant, it still is transferable and relevant to future careers.
That makes a lot of sense. So just don't discount something because you think it's not important, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's so easy for people to do that because they're like, well, this isn't relevant to what I want my job to be in. But because our roles at FAST involve consulting, that pizza delivery experience where you're de-escalating a customer is super relevant. That's something that you may have to do in our role if one of our clients is upset or unhappy on how something was implemented. That's a skill that you would, and an experience you would pull from within our roles.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. And then what are a few do's and don'ts for resumes in LinkedIn?
So I would say, I kind of already stole this, I said it earlier, but I use your LinkedIn as an extension of your resume. Don't feel like you're limited. Expand on your bullet points, expand on the skills that you learn in those areas. And I think too, something I tried to do when I was searching for a job is your about section. Use that as an opportunity to showcase your personality a little bit, because it is an opportunity for you to step outside of what you were, what you normally say in a pitch, and you can show your personality. You can talk about what you're interested in. You get to expand a little bit more and craft that about me section. I also recommend using keywords in your resume and your LinkedIn profile. I have done some LinkedIn headhunting before, and LinkedIn makes it really easy for a recruiter to see certain keywords that we're looking for. So if I type in a hard skill or even a soft skill that I'm looking for, it pulls profiles that have those keywords and it actually highlights it. So it is so important for you to be putting those keywords in your profile, just because if somebody is searching for that, it really makes it easy for that employer to see a qualified candidate. At FAST, for resumes, we go through every resume and review it on an individual basis. So I can't speak for all companies, but I do know there's companies out there that use a database that searches for keywords. So I think that this is an opportunity for you to take the job description of the job you're applying for, maybe even highlight those keywords or identify those keywords, those skills that they're looking for, and make sure that they're in your resume. That's going to be the best way for you to make sure that your resume gets pulled, because those are the exact words and exact skills that they're looking for, because they listed it in the job description.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so, I'd also say too, it's important to just be concise. Be concise with your bullet points, be concise with what you're trying to get across, because really this is meant to be just a snapshot of who you are. And this is your opportunity to get to an interview, to that next point in the process. So that's when you can expand more. That's when you can showcase who you are a little bit more. So use your resume and your LinkedIn as just a really snapshot of your background.
Definitely. So make sure it's putting your absolute best foot forward as well.
For sure, definitely.
And is there anything else you'd like to add or share with the students?
Yeah, I would say it's really important for you to do research on a company before you even apply to them. I think that's a common thing. I'm sure you've heard about a million times. I think I've said it about a million times, but you'd be so surprised how few people are actually doing the research, putting in the work, learning about different companies before even talking to them. And if you want to stand out in a good way, and people ask me all the time, how do I stand out? I'm like, just do your research and ask good questions. You'd be surprised how few people actually do that. So it is a really easy way for you to stand out and stand out in a good way. And then I'd also say to show interest. I think that showing interest in a company is so important in making sure that you get your point across that I want to work for you. This is something that I'm interested in. This is something I'm passionate about. And I think it's so easy to do. And if you're doing your research, it's especially easy to do that because you are looking into them. You know what they're looking for. You know what they're wanting to do. And you can bring that up throughout the interview or throughout those conversations that you have with them because you just have that background knowledge.
Yeah, that honestly makes a lot of sense. I feel like I would assume that everyone does that research, but it's kind of odd to hear that not a lot of people do.
It's pretty sad, honestly. It's so surprising. You're like, I know that you've heard this before, and I know that I've probably told you before if I've talked to you before, and it's really a few amount of people that actually do a good amount of research and ask good questions and even show interest throughout an interview. The other thing that I've recently been seeing with interviews that I've been doing is that people are really casual with how they're dressing. And I have found that interesting. I mean, they're interviewing for a full-time job. You'd think that you would be wearing like a blazer or a suit or at least like a tie or like a nice blouse. And it is really surprising how few people, I don't know if COVID has changed people's outlooks on what they think is appropriate for a video call, but even if it is a video interview, it's still dressing up, still looking professional. It's again going back to that first impression of you.
Of course, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for your time today and all of your advice. Like it was definitely very, very valuable.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope that everyone took away a little tidbit that they can take with them into their resume or their LinkedIn profile, and hopefully it'll get them their next job or internship.
And to all our listeners, hope you have a great rest of your day.